Hello, this is Gail Ferris. I went on a trip to Barrow, Alaska to see if there were any kayaks that are used in that area. The last person to paddle a kayak died 20 years before I went to Barrow in 1991. It was interesting to think about that as a kayak paddler. Today the winds have finally died here at Barrow, Alaska, which is 71 degrees north. We've had the previous day winds at 50 miles an hour and temperature in the 30s. This morning it is just below freezing. We had some snow last night. The wind has been out of the west. Here is spotted seal stretched out to dry. The Eskimo here actively fish and hunt ducks, gathering things such as bearded seal. These are two skins which are used to cover umiaks in this area. They can be 8 feet long at their largest size. They are lighter weight than walrus, but they're quite nice. Behind these skins is the Chukchi Sea. The wind has been blowing from the west for 2 days. It brought the ice in, and this is 2 days of westerly wind has brought in a whole lot of ice. I'm not going boating in this area. Also in this ice, a walrus will be coming in. When the ice is blown in, a walrus come along too. To my complete delight, I found this umiak on the beach, and it's very exciting. I believe it belongs to Roy Nagayak. It is used for traditional hunting of walrus in this area, and its structure is very similar to those umiaks in Greenland, with the exception that the frame has more wooden members in it, and it is more heavily built. It is covered with bearded seal skin, and the same is done in Greenland. In other parts of Alaska, they are using walrus hide, which has to be split. The hide on this boat is sewn by 6 ladies at the same time, so that it is stretched evenly, and they have a special blind stitch which doesn't penetrate completely the hide, so that it is waterproof stitching you are looking at in this picture. It's very exciting to see how it is all strung together as a drum head over this frame, and the frame is attached, the members, with single attachment points so that the entire frame will shift or rack when it hits an obstacle such as a big chunk of ice. When they are out on the water among the ice, they can easily drag the boat up on the ice if they need to, and they disembark from the beach using paddles, and they can also have an outboard motor off the stern if they need to. So it's a most versatile, lightweight boat, ideal for hunting in the ice that exists, because it can take much more punishment than a hard-shelled or wooden-shelled boat could ever tolerate. Seal drying on a rag. Some this is to show you how nice and warm it is here this morning. That's snow. Here is my solar panel and a view of the design of my tent. It is floorless. It is called a Megamid. I put an interior liner of 1.9 ounce ripstock nylon to make it warmer. I chose orange because it is an uplifting color, which you can see. Right where I was camping on the beach were these little phalaropes busy eating. As they spin around, they kick up little zooplankton, which they spot and eat. They were so friendly that they very nearly
were willing to walk over my feet. I also had the same situation occur with some other shorebirds right in this spot. It was very delightful to have such an experience. It was one of the joys of being a solitary traveler, is animals are less afraid of. In the summer there is always a huge explosion of zooplankton and phytoplankton, all of which feed these little birds, which will shortly be migrating to warmer areas in the south. If you look at this beach, you realize it's very shallow water, and in this area it was very shallow. So shallow I had to be very careful when I came into any inlets because there was barely enough water to float my kayak. Joining in with the phalaropes are these black-bellied plover that are also scouting the beach for little copepods and other types of zooplankton, and it's quite fun. They almost walked over the toes of my boots as I was sitting there with my camera, and they were so close that they were actually too close for the camera's focus. A couple of king eider came by, and then I saw, of all things, a long-tailed jaeger. That was extremely exciting to see this elegant bird in flight. I saw both a pomeranian and a long-tailed jaeger in Pond Inlet in 1989, but this was extremely exciting to see this jaeger so busily flying over the tundra with a background of virga behind him. I snuck up on this jaeger when it was sleeping on the tundra a while later. I found it was not a surprise to wake up and find that it had snowed overnight. I found it fascinating to find myself surrounded by hoarfrost in the morning, and taking photographs of it was interesting. Also on the horizon to see virga was very interesting. The details of the weather in this area are fascinating to watch as they evolve. Finding potable water was trickier than I ever expected it would be, because it's so shallow and it's very boggy. It was a dangerous trek to try to get some drinkable water. Here is my klepper covered with frost. I paddled a folding kayak, the Klepper Arius 1, which I've used for many years as a good expedition kayak. I tied it to the ground with stakes of wood. The topography in Barrow is just about completely flat. However, what is interesting to see are areas where there are lenses of ice that are melting out, and then the soil is collapsing. Some of the soil is actually layers of ancient forest laid down many millennia before. Here is a view of the ice from the water in my kayak. There are lenses in the soil.
This is the sunset at Barrow. It's actually 11:30. They're not getting sunsets at this time of year, but this is an interesting skyline. An Arctic fox has just woken up, and he seems to be barking at me. He's very interested in what I'm doing here in the Arctic. He is watching me while I'm watching him. He's light tan. This type of thing you see when you're alone in the Arctic.
Arctic foxes are notorious for not being that afraid of people and are very curious animals.
This is as dark as it gets at midnight up here in Barrow on this date. These are our conditions this morning. Got about 15 knots coming out of the east. About 1.5 seas. I'm not sure what this means, but it could be some stinky weather coming in. Here's something nice over here. Hard to say.
This is a Jaeger once again, flying over the tundra.
A pair of king eiders down there.
It's nice to see king eider. I've seen them in Greenland. They're quite common there.
This is an umiak frame without the skin cover I've just found in Barrow. Beautifully constructed. Every detail.
Umiak frames in Alaska are built very sturdy and are oftentimes quite old, even 100 years old or more, because they are so sturdily built, and the cool, dry weather preserves wood forever. Note the bottom of this umiak has very thick timbers for the keel and chines. Now we're looking at the stem and the stern section, and we're looking at the stringers on the outside and the inside stringer. And now we're looking within. Note that everything is smoothed off as much as possible so that the skin stretched over the surface will not have any projections that would cause it to wear. Everything is set with carriage bolts, single point attachments at all 90-degree places where things meet, so that this entire frame can twist and rack as needed to maintain its structural integrity in the ice. The frame is planned out for maximum flexibility and breathability for the skin, so that the skin will dry easily, so that there's no place where water can be trapped between the frame and the skin. So the whole thing is just an open meshwork that's very strong and flexible and very seaworthy. It's the closest to the oldest designed kayak known. There was one found in Peryland in Greenland of this same general shape. Before metal fittings were available, all of these pieces would have been tied in, and they would have used seal skin to tie all these pieces together. and in some cases antler pieces. It has pins. These are beautiful, elegant little Sabine gulls. They have 13-inch wingspans, and they are after the shrimp that are in the water that have come in. Here are the shrimp that are washing up on the beach. An enormous population of them. They're probably a type of krill. I am once again back to Point Barrow, and this is the condition of the ice on the Chitchee Sea side of the peninsula. Curiously enough, on this beach, along the Chitchee side, wash up lots of fossilized ivory pieces. Here's the umiak at rest again, but later it was carried up higher off the beach. Going for a walk along this beach, I found fossilized ivory pieces people had made centuries before.
In Aurelia.
It's a small-sized one. Here is a full-sized Aurelia that has washed in with the tide.
This is a kayak at the NARL laboratory in Barrow, Alaska. It's a small Chitchee-type kayak for most likely retrieving game. A 32-inch beam, maybe, about 12-13 feet long. It's full rounded bow and stern to take waves, to ride up over the waves. It is covered with canvas. Fossilized ivory, barstool harpoons, bolas, nets, all fossilized bone ivory, harpoon tips here and pieces. The mammoth tusk found 60 miles from Barrow in a dry lake. Belonged to a mammoth that was 9 months old. It also has a mast step for sailing. small area. A unique animal. Very pretty. No fur on them. They're much cooler. For summer wear. Look like little kids one part when they jumped them out of the water. They look like diners, but I think they're sleeping. There's what appears to be a petrel. This is the same type of plane that we're flying out in right now. We are prepared for takeoff. This is typical Barrow snowstorm weather. That's the 2GC with the ice conditions as you can see now. The 15th of August. This is the glacier we're viewing. We're flying directly over one. On my way to Barrow, I happened to go by way of Seward, and I found this kayak. It is a reproduction of a Kodiak kayak in David Zimmerle's book called Kayak on page 29. And this was sitting at the Chamber of Commerce office in Seward, Alaska. It's a beautifully made reproduction, true to everything that David gave us information about this design of this kayak. So I thought I would capture it and add it in. In my travels I found it
oftentimes very rare experience of finding such wonderful specimens available for viewing. In 2006, I have donated 2 Bidarka to Mystic Seaport to their kayak building program so that people can see and actually try on the water such craft. It's very exciting to be able to see a kayak and test.